But before we get to you, let's talk to Reform UK spokesperson Ann Widdecombe. Welcome, Ann.
Hello, good evening.
Well, your thoughts. We've been discussing Starmer's or the Cabinet's decision to recognise Palestine in September unless Israel meets Keir's demands. I'm sure they'll spend a lot of time thinking about that. They won't bother with that one bit. But I mean, what is the problem with this, Anne, as far as I can work out, is it won't make any difference to the situation in Gaza. It won't feed a single child. It won't bring about the ceasefire. So they had an emergency cabinet meeting today about this. So why is it that they want to recognise Palestine? It can only be one thing, in my view. They're worried about the Muslim vote back here. There are at least 4 cabinet ministers who will lose their seats, their constituencies at the next election, unless they keep the Muslim vote. The Labour Party is going to desperately need every Muslim vote it can get at the next election. This decision by the government today, or the cabinet today, can be nothing to do with the Middle East. It's all to do with domestic politics, isn't it?
Well, whatever the motivation is, what is extremely clear is that the only people who are going to benefit from this are Hamas. They're the only people who are going to get any comfort from this at all. Now, it's very straightforward. If Keir Starmer wants a ceasefire, Israel has been saying for a long time that all Hamas has got to do to secure a ceasefire is to release all the hostages. They have not done that. And now Keir Starmer is effectively rewarding them for their terrorist actions. I mean, that's what it comes down to. And I just cannot believe, if the motivation is political in this country at this time, despite the fact the next election is 4 years away, even if that is the motivation, I can't believe that he cannot see beyond his nose on this one, because all he's doing is frustrating an ultimate victory or an ultimate agreement or an ultimate ceasefire or an ultimate anything. He's frustrating that by jumping the gun, demanding recognition for Palestine at a time when Hamas is still in control and is still committing atrocities.
Absolutely. And what he's done with this decision is he's destroyed what little relationship Britain had left with Israel and with Benjamin Netanyahu, which I think was a valuable relationship. We are very old allies. It's a shame to see that destroyed. Also, he's alienated Donald Trump, his apparent new best friend, and alienated America. America and Trump still stand foursquare with Israel. So we didn't have to do this, and yet he's done it, and I can't see any positives to it apart from the Muslim vote for Labour. But apart from that, I think it's done damage to us internationally, don't you?
Well, I think it's done damage to us internationally. I mean, there hasn't been a great rush to join what the French have done. So clearly the international community doesn't think this is such a wonderful idea. Now, everybody wants a final 2-state solution at the end. Everybody wants that. But you don't get it by giving in to Hamas at this point and by coming to these conclusions quite outside any negotiations that are going on. So you may well be right about the motivation, but, there are another 4 years to go. He could have hung on a bit longer if that's all he's worried about.
The British ambassador, the Israeli ambassador to Britain, Shippy Hotovely, she's warned that recognising Palestine rewards murder, rape and torture. She's got a point. She's got a point, hasn't she?
Well, clearly it does. As I said just now, he's just rewarded Hamas for their terrorist activities, and that includes all the atrocities that were committed on the 7th of October, which started this latest flare-up. And it is just effectively what he's saying to them is, oh, you just keep on going and you'll win. That's what he is saying, and it is beyond irresponsible.
And in his statement, or the summary of what happened at this cabinet meeting, or this is sort of Starmer's statement, he said the UK will recognise the state of Palestine in September unless wait for it, the Israeli government takes substantive steps to end the appalling situation in Gaza, reaches a ceasefire, makes clear there will be no annexation of the West Bank, and commits to a long-term peace process that delivers a two-state solution. Well, so he's very, very dictatorial with the Israelis. The only thing he says about Hamas is he reminds Hamas that they still would like the hostages to be released. So it's all down on Israel, as if Israel is the villain of the story, and Hamas gets off scot-free. What is he playing at here?
Well, what he's playing at, for some reason, is giving in to the very considerable forces in his own party, which have been, I wouldn't call it pro-Palestine, I'd call it pro-Hamas, throughout this entire saga. And you're quite right. I mean, by laying down, I mean, this is outside any international negotiations. It's just Keir Starmer acting like, some dictator, by laying down conditions that he expects Israel to meet. Oh, well, I mean, I don't imagine. I'm with you. I don't imagine Israel will spend 2 seconds worrying about that. But it is just such a disgrace to Britain that he's done this.
I think it's the biggest irrelevance to happen to Israel since Macron recognised Palestine. These two-bit Europeans are making their big decisions about this Israel. They like to boss Israel around. Now, we had on the show earlier, Anne, Paul Harris, the editor of the Jewish Chronicle, and he said that for him, and many Jewish people, it was just sort of shades of Corbyn again, that he just sensed in this kind of innate dislike of Israel that so many Labour politicians seem to have. He says this is a result of antipathy towards Israel by the Labour Party, and I tend to agree with him.
Yeah, I mean, I think, as I said, the forces within his party that have been supportive of the forces against Israel throughout this business. It is indeed, there is still latent anti-Semitism. Now, I have never said that criticising the Israeli government is in itself proof of anti-Semitism. It certainly isn't. You can criticise any government in any country, in any part of the world. So I don't think that. But I think the emphasis that there has been on supporting Palestine when Israel suffered so enormously, and has always said, release the hostages, and you'll get your ceasefire. They won't release the hostages. Why isn't he calling upon Hamas to take the first step instead of laying down about 6 or 7 conditions for Israel and then throwing one into Hamas as an afterthought?
Exactly right. Now, one last point, really, if I can call upon your knowledge. What does it mean? How can you recognise a state that isn't a state? I don't want to be disparaging about Palestine at the moment, but basically it's a pile of rubble. And what is the point of saying, well, we recognise Palestine as a state when everybody knows it isn't a state? What's the point?
Well, I suppose his point would be that, most of the world thinks we need some sort of two-state solution. He can't do it on his own like this outside all the international framework. I mean, that is a nonsense. America will never go along with this. So, now, what is the point? What is the point? Whom is he trying to please?
Well, it's not most of the electorate, I'll tell you that. You should see my switchboard. They are not happy. Listen, let me ask you one more question, if I can, Anne. What did you make today of Peter Kyle, the Science and Technology Secretary, going on live TV, Sky News, and accusing Nigel Farage of siding with Jimmy Savile because Nigel, like many of us, including me, has reservations about the Online Safety Act. He believes, as millions of Brits do as well, that whilst it may go some way towards protecting children from the horrific dangers of the internet, it also goes a long way towards suppressing freedom of speech. So it was a very valid criticism that Nigel Farage delivered, and for that a Labour Secretary of State goes onto television and basically says he's Jimmy Savile's best friend. That was, Nigel says, I want an apology, that was disgusting. I agree with him, it was disgusting, wasn't it?
Yes, it was disgusting. I don't know why Peter Kyle said that. Let me just make this clear. There is no doubt at all that Reform is fully committed to protecting children online. We are fully committed to that. What we have said is that this act goes way beyond that. There's even a Conservative MP complaining, that people couldn't access their speech because of this. It goes way beyond that. It is massive censorship. But although we will repeal this act, and we are not just going to leave the issue of children up in the air and unprotected. We will not do that. We will introduce measures to protect children at the same time as we repeal the act.
The thing about Kyle is he sort of maintained, or he tried to give the delusion that the Online Safety Act is purely to protect children. That's the only thing about it. Well, for example, as you said, that Tory MP had her speech blocked, and over the weekend, members of the public were blocked from watching footage of the asylum seeker hotel protest in Leeds because of the Online Safety Act. So it isn't just about kids. It's those elements of it that we worry about. So Kyle is mischaracterising. He's saying, well, if you're against this act, then you don't want to protect children. You don't mind children getting into harm online. That's rubbish, isn't it?
Well, it's total rubbish. I don't know what got into Peter Kyle's head. It's a grossly irresponsible statement to make. Either he was very tired or he was very confused, or I don't know what. But what I do know is that is not a fair representation of Reform's attitude towards this act, which is that, of course, we want to protect children. By the way, it isn't at all clear that this act does protect children. There are enormous deficiencies in it. But we will make sure that at the same time as we get rid of this censorship, and we're going to get rid of an awful lot of censorship when Reform comes to power, we will at the same time ensure that children are protected. And as Nigel said, we've got some of the best tech brains in the country to call upon. They will engage upon this. They'll come up with a far more convincing answer.
And it's always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time. That's Ann Widdecombe, Reform spokesperson, about, two stories really. The Online Safety Act, which, by the way, folks, as Ann quite rightly says, it's dubious whether it protects children in any significant way anyway, so it's not a very good act. But more to the point, it blocks freedom of speech and freedom of expression in many sinister and worrying ways. For example, you couldn't get to see footage of the protest of the Leeds outside the Leeds Asylum Seeker Hotel over the weekend because of the Online Safety Act. What's that got to do with kids? That's censorship. That's Stasi-style censorship, isn't it? So that's why we're worried about that act. It isn't true to say it is just about protecting children, and if you don't like that act, you've got no interest in protecting children. Shame on Peter Kyle. Shame on him.